Swell Season Surf Radio is recorded by the NewsStand Studio at Rockefeller Center in the heart of Manhattan and is distributed by WAX.Radio.
Flocking to the sea, crowds of people wait for me. Seagulls scavenge still ice cream, worries vanish within my dream. I lift myself
Hello and welcome to Swell Season Surf Radio. I'm your co-host, Tyler Breuer.
And I'm your co-host, Karen Song.
Our guests for this episode are the founders of Emocean, a surf-centric magazine that champions diverse perspectives, radical creativity, relatability, and empowerment, and especially the narratives of women, BIPOC, and LGBTQ plus surfers.
Thembi Hanify is an Australian graphic designer and art director based in Ojai, California. Having graduated from Queensland College of Art in Australia, she moved to New York City in 2010 on a whim and began her career working for boutique digital fashion agencies Hugo and Marie and Sweden Unlimited. She moved from Manhattan to Rockaway Beach and then eventually relocated to the West Coast. She's worked for companies such as Apple and Rag & Bone. She's the founder and creative director for Emocean.
Mariah Ernst was born and raised on the cold shores of Maine, where she had a stroke of luck in high school, picking up an opportunity to study in Bali at a local school through her town's Rotary Club. She lived, worked, and surfed in Bali for much of her 20s, working as a writer and editor for 2 different magazines based in Bali before eventually finding her way to New York. She currently lives in the Caribbean and is editor of Emocean. We welcome to the show this dynamic duo, Thembi and Mariah. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us here. So for our listeners, just to give them a little thing here, Mariah is digital and Thembi is here in person. So we have a really awesome show for everyone. So pretty excited. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks. I think I'm muted.
No,
Oh, no, we hear you.
We hear you.
Oh, okay.
You will not be
I
silenced,
just saw the little mute icon. I was like,
You will not be silenced on this show.
wonderful.
Well, can we actually, since we have this group, this really awesome group, I would love to kind of first get into the Olympics. That was such a big thing that happened this week. Actually, Mariah, were you able to watch it from where you are?
Yeah, I've seen the highlights.
Yeah.
I have the kind of conceptual overview.
Right. And Thembi, I assume you were able to catch some of it here.
I actually didn't watch any live, but I also caught the highlights. And yeah, I think it's incredible that Carissa took the gold.
So
was so
amazing.
happy. I was waiting in line for a bagel at Ross and Daughters when I was reading the news.
Great place to be.
A good New York moment.
Yeah, and I thought it was just such a great way for the Olympics, for surfing to make its debut in the Olympics. It's kind of come full circle with surfing's roots, Duke, his relationship to the Olympics and surfing and bringing surfing out into the world and from Hawaii. And then for Carissa to bring it back home, it was really touching and so inspiring. I mean, so many amazing stories in the Olympics, not just that, but that to me was kind of like the pinnacle of it.
she surfed. Well, there's a lot of different things going on here. One was the legitimacy of the Olympics as had someone who's not on the CT won, it would have brought into question a lot of things about the legitimacy of the Olympics. So I think, one, there is that sort of storyline that I've been reading about. Two, you know, it is the Duke story that you mentioned, which is, you know, Duke wanted surfing to be in the Olympics. That was his dream. He actually asked the IOC when he was, you know, in the Olympics if they could allow surfing in it. He was really a big proponent of it. And so to see Carissa bring it home, who I think totally embodies
so great.
Duke's spirit
He does.
and her and his demeanor, like she really is incredible. And I think, it's storybook for sure. It's storybook for sure, but also women getting, I feel like, almost more recognition and more media play than the men is awesome and due.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was a big story, and also the I lost my train of thought. Oh, you know, I was thinking about while you were saying that about, you know, you guys, I think you've seen Girls Can't Surf, and Mariah, I don't know if you've seen that yet, but you know, it's about the women from that generation of the 80s and early 90s, and then a little bit beyond that. But at the end of the movie, you have a little baby, you know, little young Carissa Moore.
Yeah.
And it just to see the trajectory of women in surfing and to see the lineage. And here's Carissa kind of like taking it, and, you know, she's kind of like the person who's taking it to the next level, like for the next generation, you know,
Well,
kind of the
Totally.
beacon of it.
Well, from a lens of emotion, how do you think, will you cover this in future issues potentially, and how do you view this, like surfing the Olympics?
It's interesting. I hadn't honestly thought about it much until now and until this moment. And yeah, seeing how the competition went. I think it's very interesting. I think that the Olympics is an interesting construct, and it comes from a time that was very different. So I like to see that the whole thing is kind of like changing and progressing, and I think that's amazing. It'll be interesting to get a perspective from the Olympic athletes as to how that is different from, you know, like they're used to going on this big world tour and so many different events, and then the Olympics is just one. It was over so quickly.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, that's it. But yeah, it'll be interesting to get that perspective on how it was to compete there as opposed to the regular tour.
Right.
What do you think, Mariah?
Yeah, it's really interesting and really cool to see where the Olympics fits in terms of that history you were talking about, Karen, with Girls Can't Surf. And I actually have tried to watch the film, and I'm not able to in the US yet. So I think that they haven't done the international release, and I couldn't get the premiere, but I'm familiar with the story a little bit and really excited about it and love it. And these women in that film, they struggled for a long time to get recognition, payment. They struggled to get any sort of support from the industry, or, you know, some of them had family sports, some of them didn't. But they all had this passion, and they loved to surf. And I think they were driven by adventure and desire and just like pure fire. And that translated into contests, which kind of saw their technical abilities and kind of saw like the technical aspect of women surfing develop into a point where, you have kind of the level of surfing today. And then, and then Carissa, it's super cool to see Carissa being the kind of like connecting point there. And then her getting this recognition on the world stage. Competitive surfing isn't kind of my hugest interest on its own. I won't watch a lot of contests, but I'll watch them and kind of I'm interested in how they fit into the stories of women surfing and progression and things like that. So it's really cool, like the Duke part, how it was his dream. That's almost like the most exciting part of hearing it just from you guys. That's like the most exciting part for me, is to hear that his dream came true, and that it was a Hawaiian, and it was like a Asian American Hawaiian woman from Hawaii, and that I was thinking it was maybe just my filter where I was seeing mostly Carissa won the gold, and I was seeing mostly women surfing in the Olympics. But that's so great to hear that it seems like she's gotten a lot of recognition, and to see kind of like the arc of how far, how much women have struggled and pushed, to be able to get recognition there on a wide stage and be able to get all types of support from media support, industry support, and then monetary support.
Right. And the level of surfing was like astounding. Yeah. I mean, across the board, not just in, Carissa's heats. It was just across the board incredible.
Well, I don't know if you saw this. Carissa posted on her Instagram. It was an Xfinity commercial, Xfinity cable they did with Carissa, and it showed a young girl on her bed watching Carissa in the Olympics, paddling on her pillow and standing up and mimicking Carissa as she's surfing the contest, standing on her bed. And that to me was like, this is why the Olympics will be an important. This particular Olympics will be important. I think we may have like a Blue Crush moment in the sense. That film is very important for getting many women into surfing. I think
it is, but this is almost like a better moment because it's someone with. I mean, love Kate Bosworth, love Rochelle Ballard, who was her stunt double. But this is a real life moment of a woman who is so dedicated and so skilled, and is representing her native culture, which, they were the pioneers, the kind of pioneers of this age of surfing. So.
Right. No, I think also like the reason why we watch the Olympics, it's of course the competition and see like what humanity can do in terms of our bodies and physical prowess, but I think ultimately it's the stories. There's so many stories that have emerged out of this that are so incredible. I mean, I think like Kanoa's story about that beach being where his father, surfed there, grew up, and like for him to come back and win it, what was it, silver there. Yeah. I mean, there's so many stories, and Amura, Suzuki's story, and
Bianca
Baton Dog.
Bianca,
oh my God.
who got silver, who is bounced on and off tour. She's bounced
Gilmore,
She's bounced on and off tour, doesn't have support, has had struggles, and to reach that pinnacle.
Silvana Lima. Oh my God. There's so many amazing stories, and it's
I see Mirage is like,
that story is still mind blowing what she's had to overcome, and still to be told, and Bianca's as well is fantastic.
So many. Silvana was like, wow, that was really. I mean, just talking about this gives me goosebumps.
Well, it's the Olympics. So my brother and I did a Sunday Joint podcast on the Olympics recently, and we for those listeners who may not be aware of this wonderful podcast where we do deep dives into surf history. We were talking about the Olympics, and one of the goals of the Olympics, the main goal is to inspire youth and in a healthy way. And I think like that commercial totally it epitomizes it. And I think it's going to be mind blowing what we start seeing in the next 5 to 10 years.
And let's add also on the international scale, that is like the CT is so specific, and it's so specific to very few regions that have that infrastructure of surfing in terms of the competition aspect of it. And so to be able to kind of open it up in the Olympics and bring people from all the other, arenas was really important to see, like, can this actually happen on an international scale, not just, California, Hawaii, Australia, and a few, Brazil. So
well, hopefully they can do more than 20 people eventually. Yeah. Although I did like the fact that 20 people, it went much faster. They were able to take advantage of the swell window, which was really good.
The 5 people heat was nuts.
Yeah. I liked the 5 people heat because it kept... It was very active. Yeah. So let's
talk about Emocean.
Let's talk about Emocean. This gorgeous magazine that I'm holding here in my hand. It's absolutely stunning and beautiful. And
the name is incredible. I'm jealous that I wish it's so obvious, right? It's so simple and obvious. I'm like, I wish I'd come up with that for something. And it's so beautiful, and the cover that you have, this image, is so beautiful.
Thank you. I'd just like to give a shout out to my friend Belle Downey for the name, because I actually can't claim that, but she came up with it.
It's so. Let's start. How did the two of you meet? And can you give us like that